Shalom Mashpaka. So last month I was in the book of Numbers, a book that I typically don't study extensively. I've read it before more than once, but we all have those books that we seem to find ourselves in more than the others. But this one, Yahuah had me to go to, and it's not necessarily new information. It's just when Yahuah shows me where something is, like where the information is, it kind of makes me excited. So I just want to share it with you guys. So in Bamadabar, Numbers 15, starting in verse 37, going to the end of the chapter, it says, And Yahuah spoke unto Masha, saying, Speak unto the children of Yasharah, and bid them that they make them zayazath, or tassels, or fringes. I'm going to say tassels, in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the tassels of the borders a riband of blue. And it shall be unto you a tassel, that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of Yahuah and do them, and that you seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, after which you used to go a whoring, that you may remember and do all my commandments and be Kadash unto your Yahuah. I am Yahuah Yahuah, which brought you out of the land of Masabayam to be your Yahuah. I am Yahuah Yahuah. So verses 39 and 40 were the ones that got me. So it's the purpose of wearing the tassels on your garments, right? So it says that you may look upon the tassels and remember all the commandments of Yahuah and do them, and that you seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, which you used to go a whoring, that you may remember and do all my commandments and be Kadash unto your Yahuah. So in short, it's to remind you to kill the flesh and to seek Yahuah and to obey Yahuah, right? Before I really get into what it is that Yahuah showed me, I wanted to go to Matathayahu, Matthew 23, because Matthew 23, Yahusha kind of addresses the outside of the cup versus the inside of the cup, right? But I want to start just by reading verses 1 to 5 in Matthew 23. Then spoke Yahusha to the multitude and to his Lamudiyam, saying, The scribes and the Parashayam sit in Masha's seat. I want to pause right there and go to Exodus 24. It's important to understand exactly what Masha's role was in Yasharal. So Shemath, or Exodus 24, verse 12 says, And Yahuah spoke unto Masha, Come up to me into the mount and be there, and I will give you sapphire stones and a law, or Thurah, and commandments which I have written, that you may teach them. That is Masha's overall purpose for Yasharal, right? He was teaching them the commandments of Yahuah, not just giving them to him. The reason why that's important is because Yahusha is saying that the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Masha's seat. So they sit as teachers of the law. Okay. And they always say to you, observe that which they observe, but do you not the works in accord with their works, for they say and do not do. So Yahusha's setting you up for the rest of the chapter because he consistently calls the Pharisees and the scribes hypocrites. And he's telling his Lumudiyam that he's speaking to, don't be a hypocrite. he's literally saying, like, they always say for you to observe things, but they don't observe them. Like, don't do what they do. Don't say to observe them and don't actually observe it, right? For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne and lay them upon men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do for to be seen of men, that they make broad their phylacteries and enlarge the tassels of their garments. I'm going to go on and finish. And love the uppermost rooms of feasts and the chief seats in the synagogues and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, teacher, teacher. And I'll stop there. So I went down to verse 7. So going back up to verse 5. But all their works they do for to be seen of men. So everything they're doing is to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries and enlarge the tassels of their garments. So they have taken the commandment of Yahuah and made it in vain, right? Because the purpose, going back to Numbers 15, verses 39 and 40, The purpose of the tassels is that when you look upon the tassels, you remember Yahuwah's commandments and you do them. Well, one of Yahuwah's commandments is that you should not have any aluas or any aluyam above him. And when you're doing these things to be seen of men, you're making yourself an idol above Yahuwah, right? So, although they have these tassels on, they've actually broken one of Yahuwah's commandments because they have made themselves an idol. They're not honoring Yahuwah. They're not doing it to honor Yahuwah. They're doing it to honor themselves, to bring honor to themselves, glory to themselves. So they're actually being prideful in the wearing of their tassels on their garments. And then Yahusha, if you drop down to verse 11, it says, "But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant." So Yahusha is showing you like you need to be humble and not prideful. Then you skip on down to verse 25, and it says, well, verses 25 to 28. "Woe unto you, scribes and parashayam, hypocrites," right? "For you make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess." So making clean the outside of the cup is talking about putting on these Kadash garments, because the Kadash garments are, the tassels, the phylacteries, all that other stuff. You're making clean the outside of your cup. You're putting on a costume is basically what he's saying. But he's saying on the inside. So on the inside of your person, on the inside of your vessel is dirty and wicked and evil, although the outside is pretty to look at. You blind Pharisees, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. So he's saying clean the inside of your cup that the outside might be clean also. So if he's saying that if you clean the inside of your cup, the outside will also be clean, what this is also implying is if the inside of your cup is dirty, the outside is dirty as well. And it doesn't matter what you're putting on the outside. It looks pretty, but it's just as dirty as the inside, right? Verse 27, "Woe unto you, scribes and parashayam, hypocrites, for you are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones and of all uncleanness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity." So this is alluding to, you might be fooling people on the outside, but on the inside, you're full of everything that goes against Yahuwah, right? And the purpose of the tassels, remember, was to look upon them and remember Yahuwah's commandments and to do them. So you're supposed to be honoring Yahuwah with these tassels, right? I just want to take this time to point out during the time that Masha was given by Yahuwah this commandment to give to Yasharal, majority of the people in Yasharal did not have the Ruach HaKodesh dwelling within them like we do, okay? So this is a people that is void of the Ruach HaKodesh that need something to remind them of Yahuwah's commandments that they may keep them, right? Because it's 600,000 plus Israelites. And it's only one Masha, only one Aaron, only one Mariam. And I think Yahusha was around at this time, Yahusha, son of Nun. I think he was around at this time, but it's only a few people that have the Ruach during this time. Everybody don't have it. Masha cannot go around every day, all day long, checking on everybody and being like, you breaking the commandment, you breaking the commandment. So this was a checks and balance system in order to get people to self-govern themselves. One of the fruit of the Ruach HaKodesh is self-control. So with that being said, we must be born again. And part of that requires us to be filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay. So this is one of the benefits of being in Yahuwah's kingdom during this time. Now we have the opportunity to have Yahuwah's Ruach inside of us at this time, right? To be filled with his Ruach HaKodesh. And Yahusha makes it known that this is a requirement. So Yehukanan, John, chapter 3, verses 1 to 6 says, "There was a man of the Parashayam," so this is a Pharisee, right? "Named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Yehudayam. The same came to Yahusha by night and said unto him, Teacher, we know that you are a teacher come from Yahuwah, for no man can do these miracles that you do except Yahuwah be with him." Yahushua answered and said unto him, Aman, aman, I say unto you, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of Yahuwah. Nicodemus said unto him, how can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter the second time into his mother's womb and be born? Yahushua answered, Aman, I say unto you, except a man be born of water and of the Ruach, he cannot enter into the kingdom of Yahuwah. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Ruach is Ruach. So the concept of being born again is because we were born into sin and iniquity. And all of us being born into sin and iniquity were indoctrinated by the things in this world, like the school that we went to, the household we grew up in, because we could have the most loving and amazing parents, but they were also born into sin and iniquity. And unless Yahuwah awakened your parents when you were a child, and your parents have been teaching you the doctrine of Yahuwah since you were born, your parents were probably teaching you the doctrines of this world. A great many of you listening to me grew up celebrating Christmas and Halloween and Thanksgiving and New Year, Valentine's Day, Easter, President's Day. Most of us went to public school, but even if you went to private school, they weren't teaching the law of Yahuwah. So you were indoctrinated into a type of thinking, right? Our friends groups that we were in indoctrinated us into a type of thinking. When we became older and we got jobs, every job has a code of conduct. That code of conduct is to teach you the doctrine of that job and the behavior that is expected from you while you're there working at that job, right? Everywhere we go, there is a doctrine of devils that has been taught to us. So what Yahushua is essentially saying is you have to die to that person that was born into sin and iniquity with the doctrines of devils upon you, and you have to be born again into the Ruach, having the law of Yahuwah placed upon you, right? The truth of Yahuwah placed upon you. So if you hop on over to Yehukanan, John 6:63, it says, it is the Ruach that quickens, the flesh profits nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are Ruach and they are life. So Yahushua is letting us know that without the Ruach, nothing else matters. So in reference to Matthew 23, when he's talking about the Pharisees and the scribes, right, he addresses the fact that they make broad their phylacteries and enlarge the tassels of their garments, right? So they're doing fleshly works because the inside of their cup is still dirty. So they are not clean on the inside. They do not have the Ruach HaKodesh on the inside, right? So the things that they're doing are in vain, pretty much. And Yahushua even addresses in Matthew 7, 21 to 23, he's saying that there's going to be many that come to him and say that, I did all these things in your name. He's going to say, away from me, you workers of iniquity, I never knew you. Some translations say you who practice lawlessness, but the main thing to know is they are not of Yahuwah, but they were doing these things of Yahuwah, but Yahushua is making it known that they're not of Yahuwah, even though they were doing things of Yahuwah. And that brings me to what Yahuwah, like the aha moment that Yahuwah gave me when I was reading Numbers 15. So as soon as I read Numbers 15, 37 to 41, emphasis on verses 39 to 40, Ruach HaKodesh immediately said, John 14, well, Yehukanan 14, 26. Yehukanan 14, 26. I'm going to read from 15 down to 26. So let me start in Yehukanan 14, starting in verse 15. If you love me, guard my commandments, and I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. Even the Ruach Amath, that's the Ruach, that's the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it sees him not, neither knows him, but you know him, for he dwells with you and shall be in you. I will not leave you comfortless. I will come to you. Yet a little while, and the world sees me no more, but you see me, because I live. You shall live also. At that day you shall know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. He that has my commandments and guards them, he it is that loves me, and he that loves me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him, and will manifest myself to him. Yehudah said unto him, not Iscariot. I think it's funny how it says that. It's like, yo, just understand, it ain't that dude. Adonai, how is it that you will manifest yourself unto us and not unto the world? This is a very important question. How are you going to manifest yourself unto us and not unto the world? Yahushua answered and said unto him, if a man loves me, he will guard my words, and my Father will love him, and we will come unto him and make our abode with him. He that loves me not guards not my words, and the word which you hear is not mine, but the Father's which sent me. So Yahushua's letting you know what I'm telling you didn't come from me, it comes from Yahuah. It comes from my Father Yahuah. So this is what my Father says, right? Verse 25, these things have I spoken unto you, being yet present with you. Verse 26, but the Comforter, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, the set apart spirit, whom the Father will send in my name. Listen to what the Ruach HaKodesh will do. He shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance whatsoever I have said unto you. Hold up. Wait a minute. Isn't that what the tassels are supposed to do on the garment for the individual? The individual has the tassels on their garments so that they can look upon the garments and remember Yahuwah's commandments and do them. And then the Ruach HaKodesh, the comforter, the helper, he comes to remind us, well, to teach us all things and to remind us of Yahushua's doctrine, which is the law, because he says multiple times when he speaks that the words that he's speaking, they came from the Father. A matter of fact, I'll go there real quick. So Yehukanan chapter 8, starting at verse 26. And this is just one of the many times he said it multiple times, but I like this one. I have many things to say and to judge of you, but he that sent me is true, and I speak to the world those things which I have heard of him. And I speak to the world those things which I have heard of him. They understood not that he spoke to them of the Father. Then said Yahushua unto them, when you have lifted up the son of Adam, then shall you know that I am he, and that I do nothing of myself, but as my Father has taught me, I speak these things. Yahushua speaking what his Father taught him to say. And he that sent me is with me. The Father has not left me alone, for I do always those things which please him. The reason why I like that particular instance where Yahushua lets you know that he's only doing the things that Yahuwah told him or taught him is because it lets us know that Yahushua's doctrine came from Yahuwah. It is not a separate doctrine to be taught. He's literally teaching the things of his Father. But the reason why it sounds different from what Masha was having Yasharal do is because Yahushua came to immerse or baptize with the Ruach HaKodesh. So he has a greater immersion than what Yehukanan the immerser had, right? He's preparing us to receive the Ruach HaKodesh. He's cleaning the inside of our cup so that we can receive the Ruach HaKodesh, because Ruach HaKodesh, it says it, set apart spirit. Yahuwah's spirit can't just dwell in any vessel. Yahuwah's spirit's not going to dwell in a dirty vessel. So Yahushua was sent to clean up the inside of our cups to receive the Ruach HaKodesh on the inside of our cup. So that means that he has to prepare us in a way to receive something greater than what Masha was teaching. But notice what I didn't say. I did not say you don't have to keep the law. There's a lot of people that I've come across lately, just in life period, that they will literally hear something that you didn't say and want to object to or disagree with or argue with you. But if you heard something say that, it wasn't me. Okay. So you need to go to Yahuwah about that. Another place I want to go is Yehukanan chapter 17. This is where Yahusha prays for his Lamuda Yam. Well, first he prays for himself, then his Lamuda Yam, and then anybody that listens to and receives the doctrine that's coming from his Lamuda Yam, his taught ones, right? So starting in verse 1, these words spoke Yahusha and lifted up his eyes to heaven and said, Father, the hour is come. Glorify your Son, that your Son also may glorify you, as you have given him power over all flesh, that he should give eternal life to as many as you have given him. And this is life eternal, that they might know you, the only true Yahuah, and Yahusha HaMashiach, whom you have sent, and Yahusha HaMashiach, whom you have sent. This makes more sense when you remember that Yahusha is the word of Yahuah. Yahuah sent his word, right? And Yahusha is also the truth. And when you go to Psalm 119, 142, David declares, and your truth, well, he declares, and your Torah is the truth, right? So if Yahusha is the truth and the Torah is the truth, what does that make Yahusha? I'm going to leave you with that one. I have glorified you on earth. I have finished the work which you gave me to do. And now, O Father, glorify me with your own self, with the glory which I had with you before the world was, with the glory that I had with you before the world was. And I want to go back to verse 4. I've glorified you on earth. I have finished the work which you gave me to do. Remember, Yahusha was cleaning the inside of the cups of the Lamuda Yam so that they would be able to receive the gift from the Father, which is the Ruach HaKodesh that Yahusha talks about. And at the end of the book of Luke, chapter 24, he's like, oh, you need to wait in Jerusalem for this gift of the Father, from the Father, power from on high. And then in the book of Acts, we see Acts chapter 2, 1-4, they receive the Ruach HaKodesh, right? So Yahusha was cleaning the inside of their cup so that they could receive Ruach HaKodesh. And Yehukanan chapter 13, I'm not going to go there, I'm just going to point you in that direction. Yehukanan chapter 13, Yahusha addresses this. He lets Kappa know when he goes to wash their feet, and Kappa's like, you should not wash my feet. And he was like, if I don't wash your, if I don't do this thing unto you, you have no part with me. And then Kappa's like, well, not my feet only, but my hands and my head, which is very significant because of Leviticus 14 and the places that the high priest has to kind of cleanse and whatnot. Anyway, so he's like, but my hands and my head as well. And Yahusha's like, a man that is clean, save not wash his whole body, but his feet only, or something to that effect. I can't say it in King James speak, okay? But he's like, you don't have, like, a person that's clean doesn't have to wash their whole body, only his feet. And he says, you are clean, but not all of you, right? So he's letting them know that they've been cleaned. And we already know, because of the type of cleanness that Yahusha is addressing, is the inside of the cup that's been clean, right? Okay, back to John 17, starting in verse 6. I have manifested your name unto the men which you gave me out of the world. Yours they were, and you gave them me, and they have guarded your word. Now they have known that all things whatsoever you have given me are of you. So everything Yahusha has is of Yahuah, which means the doctrine as well, right? For I have given unto them the words which you gave me, and they have received them and have known surely that I came out from you, and they have believed that you did send me. Okay, let's read that again a little bit slower. For I have given unto them the words which you gave me. Yahuah gave Yahusha these words, and they have received them and have known surely that I came out from you, and they have believed that you did send me. So again, everything that Yahusha taught, he taught the law of Yahuah, but he taught it in a way that we could receive Yahuah's Ruach. Because again, Masha was teaching the people that were void of the Ruach and were not going to receive the Ruach into their vessel. So he was giving away, he was given things to tell them to do in order for them to still remember Yahuwah's commandments and keep them on their own. And you remember I said that the tassels back then were meant as a way for them to self-govern, because self-control or temperance is one of the ruach, the fruits of the ruach. So I just want to read that to you real quick. Galatians 5, starting at verse 22. But the fruit of the ruach is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Some translations will say self-control, but that's what temperance is, self-control. Against such there is no law put in place. And understand, when Paul says against such there is no law put in place, he is saying there is no law of sin and death. And he makes it known that he speaks of a law of sin and death. So one of the things I despise about this fallen world is they a lot of times just put in here law when Shaul is talking, so it makes it difficult to understand what Shaul is talking about. But there is one time in particular where his words actually say law of sin and death. That's in Romans 8, verse 2. And I just want to read that. I know I'm kind of getting off. Just bear with me real quick. So Romans 8 and 2 says, for the thurah of the Ruach Hayayam, or the Ruach of life, the spirit of life, in Mashiach Yahusha, has made me free from the law of sin and death. So those that are in the Ruach are free from the law of sin and death. So that's actually the law that is talking about in Galatians chapter 5, verse 23. Okay. Because remember, the Ruach HaKadosh is supposed to teach us teach us the law of Yahuwah and remind us of the things that Yahushua spoke, which was the things of his Father, right? So if there was no law, period, if there was no law of Yahuwah, then we wouldn't need the Ruach HaKadosh. So it's important to understand these things, because again, this fallen world, Yahuwah knew well before any of us existed that men would come and take his written word and tamper with it. So none of this caught him off guard. None of these Bibles, none of these translations are 100% perfect. That's another reason why we need the Ruach HaKadosh, because again, but the Comforter, which is the Ruach HaKadosh, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance whatsoever I have said unto you. So understand, the Ruach HaKadosh is going to teach you even when the world tried to deceive you by changing some of the words and some of the meanings and some of the understandings in this book, okay? Which just alludes to again, the importance of having the Ruach HaKadosh on the inside and not just doing these things in vain. Because the Ruach HaKadosh is the power from on high that allows us to actually do what Yahuwah said. Whereas the tassels in Numbers 15 that was the knowledge to do what Yahuwah said. That was the knowledge of what Yahuwah said and to do it. And the Ruach HaKadosh is the power in order to do it. But y'all know me. I like to qualify my statements, give witnesses to these accounts. So Acts 1, starting in verse 6 says, when they therefore were come together, they asked him. So the Lamudayam are talking to Yahusha at this point, saying, Adonai, will you at this time restore again the kingdom to Yasharal? And he said unto them, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father has put in his own power, but you shall receive power. After that, the Ruach HaKadosh has come upon you, and you shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all Yehud and in Samaria and unto the uttermost part of the earth. So you shall receive power. After that, the Ruach HaKadosh has come upon you, okay? And then I want to read to you Yehuganan, John 16, verses 7 to 15. Nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It is expedient for you that I go away. For if I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. But if I depart, I will send him unto you. And when he is come, he will reprove the world of sin and of righteousness and of judgment. Of sin, because they believe not on me. of righteousness, because I go to my Father, and you see me no more, of judgment, because the prince of this world is judged. I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot bear them now, apologies. Howbeit, when he, the Ruach Amath, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth, for he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak. And he will show you things to come. He shall glorify me, for he shall receive of mine, and shall show it unto you. All things that the Father has are mine. Therefore said I, that he shall take of mine and shall show it unto you. And I just want you to understand, this is all going back to that conversation that Yahushua had with Nicodemus. I mean, he had the conversation with Nicodemus that we have to be born again of water and of Ruach, but you can see that was part of Yahushua's doctrine. He didn't just say it one time. He might not have said it that exact way every single time, but he made it known that you needed the Ruach HaKodesh. And Yehukanan the Immerser, the only man that was ever born with the Ruach HaKodesh, he actually testifies this. So listen, it says Yehukanan 1:33-34. And I knew him not, but he that sent me to immerse with water, the same said unto me, upon whom you shall see the Ruach descending and remaining on him, the same is he which immerses with the Ruach HaKodesh. The same is he which immerses with the Ruach HaKodesh. And I saw and bore record that this is the son of Yahuah. This is Yehukanan talking about Yahusha, technically his cousin, right? With all that being said, the tassels are to be worn on your garment, your Kadash garment. Yahusha, who is the righteousness of Yahuah, is the garment that we are supposed to be wearing. So I'm going to read to you Matathayahu, Matthew 9:16-17, but I'm going to let you know, well, no, you know what? I'm going to read all of these. So Matathayahu 9:16-17 says, no man puts a piece of new cloth upon an old garment, for that which is put in to fill it up takes from the garment, and the rent is made worse. Neither do men put new wine into old wineskins. Either the wineskin breaks and the wine runs out, and the wineskins perish, but they put new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved. So again, remember how I said Yahushua is constantly talking about being born again, but he just doesn't say it the exact way he said it to Nicodemus. That's what these two verses is talking about. Is talking about being born again, because the garments have to be new. So that means that you have to be born again. You can't be the old man, right? And you can't put the new man onto the old man. You got to put off the old man in order to put on the new man. So that's talking about the garments. You don't put a new piece of cloth onto an old garment. You have to put it onto a new garment. And then the wine, the new wine in the new wineskins is referring to the Ruach HaKodesh. You don't put the set apart spirit of Yahuah into an old wineskin that has been used up and is about to give way, right? You do not do that. So it's talking about being born again. You have to be made new. That's what being born again is, being made new. You're a new creation in Yahusha. The next place is Mark 2:21-22. It says the same thing, but again, no man also sews a piece of new cloth on an old garment, else the new piece that filled it up takes away from the old, and the rent is made worse. And no man puts new wine into old wineskins, else the new wineskin bursts the wine, and the wine is spilled, and the wineskins be marred. But new wine must be put into new wineskins. And the last is Luke 5:36-39. And he spoke also a parable unto them. No man puts a piece of new garment upon an old. If otherwise, then both the new makes a rent, and the piece that was taken out of the new agrees not with the old. And no man puts new wine into old wineskins, else the new wine will burst the wineskins and be spilled, and the wineskins shall perish. But new wine must be put into new wineskins, and both are preserved. No man also having drunk old wine straightway desires new, for he says the old is better. The reason why it's important for me to read all of those is because those are three different witnesses. So other scriptures that talks about these old and new garments, you have Ephesians 4:20-24. But you have not so learned Mashiach, if so be that you have heard him and have been taught by him, as the truth is in Yahusha, that you put off concerning the former conversation the old man, which is corrupt according to the deceitful lusts, and be renewed in the ruach of your mind, and that you put on the new man, and after Yahuwah is created in which after Yahuwah is created in righteousness, apologies, and true kadashness or true set apartness. So you got to take off the old man, put on the new man. You got to take off the old garments and put on the new garments. Okay. The old garments, which are represented in in Numbers. So those garments in Numbers are representing the old man, that those of us that were born into sin and iniquity, right? That represents the old man. And now Yahusha is coming, and he is the new garments that we are to put on, right? Again, representing being born again of water and of Ruach. Now, with that being said, the works of the law are void of the testimony of Yahusha in your heart and the Ruach HaKodesh. So it's in vain. If you don't have the testimony of Yahusha in your heart being the ark of the ark of the testament, the ark of the covenant, wow, and the testimony of Yahusha being the testimony that goes inside of the ark of the covenant, Exodus 25:16-21, right? So that if you don't have the testimony of Yahusha in your heart and are filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, anything you do in the law of Yahuwah is in vain. You're doing it in vain, right? You have to be born again, especially because, again, Yahusha is the Debar, or the word of Yahuwah. Next one is Colossians 3:5-15. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil lusting, and covetousness, which is idolatry, for which things' sake the wrath of Yahuwah comes on the children of disobedience, in the which you also walked some time. So he's like, you used to be, for some time, one of the children of disobedience, all right, when you lived in them. But now you also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. So that's for those people that think that it's okay to still curse. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be very transparent. I have issues, and I've been asking Yahuwah to clean up my mouth. But for those that think it's okay to still use curse words, you got to put away filthy communication, right? Lie not one to another, seeing that you have put off the old man which with his deeds, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. So that's very important. Verse 10, let's go back and read that. And have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. Very important. Hold on to that. Where there is neither Greek or Jew, I'm just going to say it in whatever, Greek or Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond or free, but Mashiach is all and in all. Put on, therefore, as the elect of Yahuwah, Kadash and beloved, hearts of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long suffering, forbearing one another, and forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even as Mashiach forgave you, so also do you. So also do you. And above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfectness or perfectness. I don't know why I said perfectness. And let the shalom of Yahuwah rule in your hearts, to the which also you are called in one body, and be you thankful. Galatians 2:14-20. But when I saw that they walked not uprightly, according to the thurah of the Bashar, I said unto Kappa before them all, if you, being a Yahudah, live after the manner of the other nations, and not as the Yahudayam, why compel you, the other nations, to live as the Yahudayam? So Shaul is essentially rebuking Peter for doing the same thing that the scribes and the Pharisees were doing. This is this is literally somewhat the same rebuke that Yahushua gave to the scribes and the Pharisees in Matthew 23. Because again, notice what he's saying. You're telling people to do the things of the Israelites, basically. I know it says Yehuda Yam, which is Jews, but it's really of the Israelites. You're telling people to do the things of the Israelites, but you're not doing those things, you know, which is exactly what Yahushua was talking about in Matthew 23 with the scribes and the Pharisees, calling them hypocrites. And he warned his Lamuda Yam. Yahushua warned his Lamuda Yam, his taught ones, one of which was Peter, not to do that. He warned them not to be that way. And now here we are with Peter actually doing that. And because Shaul loves Peter, because Shaul loves Peter because he's telling him about it so that Peter doesn't continue in his wrong, right? If he didn't love Peter, he wouldn't be saying this to Peter right now. Verse 15, we who are Yehuda Yam by nature and not sinners of the other nations, but knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith in Yahushua HaMashiach, because Yahushua is the new man, right? As we have believed in Yahushua HaMashiach, that we might be justified by faith in Mashiach, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. But if while we seek to be justified by Mashiach, we ourselves also are found sinners, is therefore Mashiach the minister of sin? Never. For if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. For I through the law am dead to the law, that I might live unto Yahuah. I am crucified with Mashiach. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Mashiach lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of Yahuah. Right? So I want to pause right there. So Paul is getting on Kappa or Peter about not keeping the law of Yahuah, basically. He's not living in the ways of the Israelites, but he's telling people to do it. And now Shaul is saying that the life that he lives in the flesh, he lives by faith in the Son of Yahuah, which we know to be Yahushua HaMashiach, right? So he's keeping the law by living in faith in the Son of Yahuah. Yahusha being the sacrifice, the atoning sacrifice for our sin, the ultimate atoning sacrifice for our sin, not like the not like the rams and the goats and what that was used for atonement that had to continue to be slaughtered for atonement all the time. Not like that, but he is the ultimate atoning sacrifice. Continuing on, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not frustrate the grace of Yahuah, for if justification came by the law, then Mashiach died in vain. So he's letting you know, if the original way to keep the law, if the original way to keep the law justified us, then we wouldn't need Hamashiach, because Yahusha never told us not to keep the law. What he did was he came and showed us how to keep the law in the spirit. Okay? That's literally how we were supposed to be keeping the law since been. It was always meant to be something that was from within us. Again, our ancestors were giving outward things to do because they didn't have the Ruach HaKodesh filling them. But remember, the word was still supposed to be in their hearts. So it was supposed to be something that they chose to do, chose to keep. They chose life. The things of the law, as far as slaughtering the animals for atonement and wearing the tassels on your garments and all the other things, all of that stuff doesn't justify you. Because if it did, then Yahusha would not have had to come and die for our sin. His death would have been in vain. But again, Yahusha came because we had to take off the old man and put on the new man. We had to switch garments. We had to switch from a fleshly garment, a carnal garment, into a spiritual garment. So just to reiterate John 6:63, it is the Ruach that quickens, the flesh profits nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are Ruach and they are life. Now, transparently, there's a whole bunch that could be said in Galatians 2 and the little portion that I read, 14 to 20, but I'm going to keep it moving for the sake of time because, I can talk. So, Galatians 3:21 to 29. Is the law then again the promises of Yahuah? Never. For if there had been a law given which could have given life, truly justification should have been by the law. But the scripture has concluded that all are under sin, that the promise by faith in Yahushua HaMashiach might be given to them that believe. But before faith came, we were guarded by the law, in common subjection to the faith which should afterwards be revealed. So I just want to say this. We ourselves are not worthy enough sacrifices in order to be done away with sin, right? In order for sin to be covered once for all. We're not worthy enough sacrifices. But Yahusha was. Yahusha is, Yahusha was, right? So we have to die to ourselves and be born again, right? Yeah, I'm going to go there real quick. So I just want to turn to Matthew 16, starting at verse 24, just real quick. And then I'm going to get back to Galatians. So Mattathayahu, Matthew 16, starting at verse 24. Then said Yahusha unto his Lamudayam, his taught ones, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his stake and follow me. And take up his stake is actually significant as well. And one day, if Yahuah leads me into it, I'll get into that because it'll take more than me just mentioning it. But for whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his own soul? So Yahusha says the criteria for being with him, walking with him, is you have to deny yourself, take up your stake, and follow him. You have to be obedient to him. But that denying yourself, that's killing the flesh, right? That's taking off the old man and putting on the new man, because following him is putting on the new man. He is now who lives in you. Like Shaul said, it's no longer I who lives, but Mashiach lives in me. Mashiach being the word. So it's the word that now lives in you. Specifically the word of Yahuah. I'm going to pick up at verse 23. But before faith came, we were guarded by the law in common subjection to the faith which should afterwards be revealed. Wherefore the law was our tutor to bring us unto Mashiach, that we might be justified by faith. The law was our tutor. So the law was to prepare us for Yahusha. But after that faith has come, we are no longer under tutors. For we are all children of Yahuah by faith in Yahusha. We're heirs to the throne. Well, we're heirs with Yahusha. Heirs to Yahuah with Yahusha. For as many of you has been immersed into Mashiach have put on a Mashiach. Let me read that again. For as many of you have been immersed into Hamashiach have done what? Put on Hamashiach. There is neither Jew or Greek, which really essentially is just saying there's neither Israelite nor Gentile. We'll say that. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. And that's important. That's very important. I'll let y'all figure out why that's important. For you are all in Yahushua HaMashiach. And if you belong to Mashiach, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Remember, Yahushua addressed them in John chapter 8, and he's like, you're not of Abraham, because they were like, we're of Abraham's seed. And he's like, no, you're not, because if you were, you do the things he did. You know what I'm saying? But you seek to kill me, a man who's told you the truth. So he's like, but Shaul is saying that if you do these things, then you'll be Abraham's seed. All right, let me continue. 2 Corinthians 5:17 to 21 says, therefore, if any man be in Mashiach, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. Therefore, if any man be in Mashiach, he is a new creature. Born again, right? You are born again. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new, and all things are of Yahuah, who has reconciled us to himself by Yahushua HaMashiach. So that's the reason why it's necessary for us to have faith in Yahushua, because the reconciliation back to Yahuah does not come by goats and rams and pigeons and turtle doves and all that other stuff. It comes through his son Yahushua, who is his word, right? We cannot have peace with Yahuah except through Yahushua, which again, that's the reason why if you keep Yahuwah's law without the testimony of Yahushua in your heart and without being filled with Ruach Kadash, you are keeping it in vain. You are keeping it in vain. All right. Have to be born again. Yahushua said it himself. Verse 19, to wit, that Yahuah was in Mashiach, reconciling the world unto himself, not imputing their transgressions unto them, and has committed unto us the word of reconciliation. Now then, we are ambassadors for Mashiach, as though Yahuwah did beseech you by us. We pray you in Mashiach's stead, be you reconciled to Yahuwah, for he has made him to be sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of Yahuwah in him, that we might be made the righteousness of Yahuwah in him. Remember, righteous garments? Now, originally, I was just going to read Romans 13, verses 18 to 14, but it's only 14 verses. So I'm going to read the entire thing, because Romans 13 is one of those slept on chapters, as well as, people don't like Shaul. And it's usually because they don't understand what Shaul is saying, which is usually because they're void of the Ruach HaKodesh, because Ruach HaKodesh will help you understand Shaul. I can guarantee you. But yeah, Romans 13 says, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of Yahuwah. The powers that are ordained of Yahuwah. Whosoever therefore resists the power, resists the ordinance of Yahuwah, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Will you then be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and you shall have praise of the same. For he is the minister of Yahuwah to you for good. But if you do that which is evil, be afraid, for he bears not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of Yahuwah, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that does evil. Wherefore you must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for the consciousness' sake. For this cause pay you tribute also, for they are Yahuwah's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom is due. Well, custom to whom custom, apologies. Fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loves another has fulfilled the Thurah. For this, you shall not break wedlock, you shall not kill, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not lust. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So Shaul is saying what a lot of us have been taught as well. And Yahusha actually mentions it again, going back to that conversation with the Pharisees after Yahusha just shut up the Sadducees, and they were like, all right, well, what's the greatest commandment? And Yahuwah was like, love Yahuwah with all your being, basically, and love your neighbor as yourself, both of which come from the law, because you shall love Yahuwah with all your heart, mind, and soul. That comes from Deuteronomy chapter 6. And then you have, I want to say it's verse 6, but don't quote me on that. It's 4-9. Just read 4-9, but I want to say it's verse 6. And then you have, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. That's Leviticus 19, Leviticus 18. 19 and 18, right? So Shaul is summing it up the same way Yahusha was summing it up. Love works no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the Thurah, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Again, being born again, taking off one garment, putting on a new garment, right? You're casting off the works of darkness, and you're putting on the armor of light. The armor of light is actually the armor of Yahuwah, spoken of in Ephesians chapter 6, 10 to 18. Let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and envying, but put you on the Adonai Yahushua Hamashiach, and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. So you got to put on Yahusha. Again, Yahusha is the garment, right? He's the garment. The Ruach HaKodesh is the tassels. And that's all I wanted to say. I know I've talked for a long time, but that's what Yahuah was showing me. You know, the garments that was spoken of in Bamadabar, Numbers 15:37-41, is speaking of Yahusha. And the tassels is speaking of the Ruach HaKodesh, because it was giving them a way to have those things prior to Yahusha coming in the flesh and the Ruach HaKodesh being poured out onto all flesh, right? So it's not saying that you like, let me pause real quick. Let me say what I'm not saying, because again, there's somebody that's listening that's hearing me say something I didn't say. So let me clear that up. So if you're still hearing it after I say this, you know to go to Yahuah. I'm not saying that you shouldn't wear tassels. What I'm saying is, if you have tassels on your garments and you do not have the testimony of Yahusha in your heart, and you have not been filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, then wearing the tassels on your garment is in vain. That's what I'm saying. It's in vain. I'm also saying that if you come across someone who has the testimony of Yahusha in their hearts, and they have been in their heart. Wow, we only have one. And they've been filled with Yahuwah's Ruach, something that Yahuah has to do. Yahuah has to fill the vessel with his Ruach, right? And they don't have tassels on their clothing when you see them in person, understand Yahuah has already justified them. Because again, Yahuah is the one that fills you with the Ruach HaKodesh. He wouldn't have filled a dirty vessel. So if he filled them with the Ruach HaKodesh and they're bearing fruit that says that they are filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, because a good tree only bears good fruit. If they're bearing the fruit of the Ruach and they don't have tassels on their garments, you cannot say that they are not doing what Yahuah said, because at that point in time, you're bearing false witness against your neighbor, because Yahuah has already justified them by giving them his Ruach. Yahuah was talking to me about this because there is a lot of debate about these things in Yasharah. And there's a lot of people that I have come across that have kind of been wearied by people that are out here beating people over the head by not having the tassels on their garments. And realistically, it's actually ironic that that's what's happening, because the person doing the beating over the head is actually the one that's void of the Ruach, just like Matthew 23. And the fact that Yahusha specifically said that they enlarged the tassels of their garments. So he's letting you know, like Yahusha put it out there plainly. He never said don't have them. He's just saying you're doing all this, but you don't have me and you don't have the Ruach. So it's all in vain. You're doing it to be seen of men. And that's essentially what Yahuah was talking to me about when I was doing this. A lot of people are doing these things to be seen of men. So that when they go out in public, one, other people can see their tassels. Now here's the thing, that can be a good thing if you are someone that's filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, because somebody sees the tassels, they ask you why you got them on your garment, and then you right there can give witness to Yahusha. So that's the reason why I'm not saying don't put them on your garment. If Yahuah leads you to put them on your garment, that's what you do. But if they come across somebody that has them on their garment and they're not filled with Ruach HaKodesh, we all pretty much know the type of experience they're about to have, because some of us have experienced those experiences and we are walking with Yahuah, but we just don't have the tassels on our garments. So we've had people kind of treat us like piece of trash for that. I've even come across people that they have a ministry where they create paraphernalia, like with the menorah and the jewels and all this other stuff. And I've heard a man actually say that he creates this stuff so that we can identify each other out in public. But Yahusha told us how to identify each other, by our fruit, right? If you look at what a person has on the outside, the garments on the outside, you look at the paraphernalia, they got a menorah around their neck, or they got tassels on, or they got a head wrap on their head. If you identify them as an Israelite based off of that alone, then your judgment is not righteous. And I'm going to show you. Yahusha said it. John 7 and 24. When the people therefore, that's not it. 7 and 24. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Right. And even Samuel was told to do so when he was sent to anoint David. So that's First Samuel or First Shamuel 16. I'm starting verse 1. And Yahuah said unto Shamuel, how long will you mourn for Shaul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Yasharal? So I want to pause right there. So hopefully you know the story of Shaul. Twice Shaul did his own thing. So in First Samuel chapter 10, verse 8, Samuel was telling Shaul, he was telling him, like, go to Gilgal and wait there for 7 days, like tarry there for 7 days, and then I'll come and I'll make atonement and this, that, and the other. But then if you skip ahead to chapter 13, verses 8 to 14, you'll see that he didn't wait. He did it himself. He didn't wait for him. And so Samuel said to him, you have done foolishly. You have not guarded the commandment of Yahuah Eluah, which he commanded you. For now would Yahuah have established your kingdom upon Yasharal forever. But now your kingdom should not continue. Yahuah has sought him a man after his own heart, and Yahuah has commanded him to be captain over his people, because you have not guarded that which Yahuah commanded you. So because Shaul did not listen to the man of Yahuah, who is Samuel or Shamuel, Samuel was telling Shaul, Yahuwah is about to rip the kingdom out of your hand. Now, again, if you know the story, you know that didn't happen immediately, because David, the man after Yahuwah's heart, had to be raised up and taught how to be a king before he actually took the throne. So in the interim, while he's out in the wilderness running from Shaul, who wants to kill him, in the interim, Shaul is still sitting on the throne of Yasharal, even though he's been declared by Yahuwah no longer the king. David is now the king, but Shaul is still acting as king. That's essentially the same thing that I'm saying. You have folks that are acting, pretending to be a thing that Yahuwah has not declared them to be. Meanwhile, you have someone that doesn't look the part and is not in the place that you think they should be, but Yahuwah has declared and justified them as that thing. Okay. The other time that Shaul just did whatever he wanted to do was when he was told about the Amalekites, right? Shaul was told to take revenge for the Israelites by killing all the Amalekites, leave none. He wasn't even supposed to leave their cattle, but what he did was he kept the king Amalek alive, and he took some of their cattle so he could make a sacrifice unto Yahuwah. That's not what Yahuwah told him to do. And the reason why the Amalekites had to be slaughtered in this manner is because when the Israelites were at Rephidim, the Amalekites came and attacked them, and Yahuwah had declared that he would destroy Amalek off the face of the planet, basically, right? So he was going to fulfill that through Shaul, which is why he told Shaul to do what he was supposed to do, and then Shaul didn't do it. So in 1 Samuel 10 and 10, you see Shaul receiving the Ruach HaKodesh, and then in 1 Samuel 16, starting in verse 14, you see the Ruach HaKodesh leaving Shaul because he grieved the Ruach twice now, right? As the king of Israel, apologies, he grieved the Ruach twice. So chapter 10, he receives the Ruach. Chapter 14, he loses the Ruach. But before I read that, I do want to read something else. Go back up to verse 6 and actually, I'm going to start from the beginning of 1 Samuel 16. I think I already started. I can't remember. And Yahuwah said unto Shamuel, how long will you mourn for Shaul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Yasharal? Yeah, that's right. I stopped right there. Fill your horn with oil and go. I will send you to Yeshai, the Bethlehemite. It's hard for me to pronounce it in the paleo. Apologies. For I have provided me a king among his sons. And Shamuel said, how can I go? If Shaul hears it, he will kill me. And Yahuwah said, take a heifer with you and say, I am come to sacrifice to Yahuwah. And call Yeshai to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. And you shall anoint unto me him whom I name unto you. And Shamuel did that which Yahuah spoke, and came to Bayath Laham. Bayath, house, Laham, bread, house of bread. I love that. That's why I do love the paleo, because when you see it like that, you understand better what these names are. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, Come you peaceably? And he said, Peaceably, I am come to sacrifice unto Yahuah. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. And he sanctified Yeshai and his sons and called them to the sacrifice. And it came to pass, when they were come, that he looked on Eliab and said, Surely Yahuah's anointed is before him. But Yahuah said unto Shamuel, Look not on his countenance or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For Yahuah sees not as man sees, for man looks on the outward appearance, but Yahuah looks on the heart. I'm stopping right there because that's what Yahushua was talking about in John 7:24. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment, right? So if Yahuah looks on the heart, then righteous judgment is to look on the heart of a man and judge them. Hence, what fruit are they bearing? Because it's out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. So you're listening to what they're saying, you're looking at what they're doing. So it doesn't matter what they have on their outward vessel. It doesn't matter what the outside of their vessel looks like, what the outside of their cup looks like, right? Because whatever's on the inside is what makes it clean or unclean. And then if you go over to verse 14, but the Ruach Yahuah departed from Shaul, and an evil Ruach from Yahuah troubled him. And Shaul's servants said unto him, Behold, now an evil Ruach from Yahuah troubles you. Let our Adun now command your servants, which are before you, to seek out a man who is cunning, who is a cunning player on a harp. And it shall come to pass, when the evil Ruach from Yahuah is upon you, that he shall play with his hand, and you shall be well. And Shaul said unto his servants, Provide me now a man that can play well, and bring him to me. Then answered one of the servants and said, Behold, I have seen a son of Ishai in the Bethlehemite that is cunning in playing, and a mighty valiant man, and a man of war, and prudent in matters, and a comely person, and Yahuah is with him. Wherefore Shaul sent messengers unto Yeshai and said, Send me David your son, which is with the sheep. So between verses 6 and 14, David is anointed by Shamuel according to Yahuah's instructions. And so now David is being sent to Shaul to play this harp for him, because every time he plays, it alleviates Shaul from this evil Ruach that has been tormenting him. Now that because listen, I don't play about Yahuah. He says, since you're not going to listen to my Ruach, I'm going to send another Ruach that's going, since you want to listen to these other Ruachs, I'm going to send another Ruach, and it's going to torment you. But as long as David is playing, David, the new king, as long as he's playing, Shaul's not being tormented by this evil Ruach, which makes the whole story of Shaul and David even the more, because Shaul's constantly trying to kill David because he knows that David is the king, he's the new king of Yasharal, which means that Shaul is about to be replaced. That's essentially what you see happening also with Yahusha and the Pharisees and the scribes, the Sadducees, the chief priests, the elders, so on and so forth. They may not know per se that Yahusha is coming as the king of all kings, right? They may not know that. However, they are vessels of the enemy, and the enemy knows that. So the enemy is using them. Mind you, these are Israelites. The enemy is using them in order to come against Yahusha, who's the King of Kings, right? And is their replacement. Realistically, not their replacement, because he's always been the King of Kings, but when he comes in the flesh, he's showing them that he is their replacement. And the same way Shaul persecuted David or Dawood, they were persecuting Yahusha. And again, the only reason why I brought any of this up is because I wanted to show you that, yes, Shaul was still acting as king while David was on the run in the wilderness, really being taught the things of Yahuah from the heart. Because the thing that I like about the story of David is Yahuah shows you, just like with Masha, just like with Masha and, the law and the tablets, which the tablets represent our heart as well, but that's for another day. Just like with Masha, both of them were supposed to be in a place of royalty, because Masha, remember, he was adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, and David, Dawu, was supposed to be king of Israel. So both of them were supposed to be sitting in a place of royalty, physically sitting in a place of royalty. Both of them wound up being raised for the position that Yahuah anointed them for in the wilderness. And the thing I like about that is, it's something I was thinking about the other day, and then I'm going to shut up because y'all have been listening to me for over an hour now. Praise Yah. Hallelujah. One of the benefits to being in a position where you don't have a whole bunch of earthly riches is you really can see the true heart of people when you don't have a lot of money or when you're in need of something, right? Also, now, listen, y'all, don't come for me, but if you're someone that is not traditionally attractive, I couldn't get the word out, you'll also see the true heart of people, because people are attracted to shiny, pretty things, and people are always looking to get something from something, right? And when I say people, I don't mean people of Yahuah. I'm talking about people of the beast system. So, for instance, y'all know what pretty privilege is. If someone who is traditionally pretty, traditionally beautiful, handsome, says something, it could be 100% wrong, and you can know it's 100% wrong. But if you're somebody that is of the beast system, a lot of times people are going to listen to that person and amen every single thing that person says and does, because it's something about how attractive this person is that they can just spew the most vile BS out of their mouth, and folks are like, yeah, yeah, okay. But let somebody who is not traditionally attractive. Now, I'm not saying they're not a pretty person or a handsome person, but according to society, they're not necessarily beautiful or handsome, right? Folks is going to find everything to pick apart with what you got saying. They're going to find some way to pick apart, and you could be speaking the utmost truth, and they're going to look for a way to pick apart what it is you're saying. Also, going back to the lacking earthly riches, because even though we might lack earthly riches, we're still rich in Yahuah, because our treasure is in heaven. That's Yahuah. That's Yahusha. So I ain't worried about the earthly things, right? But I'm somebody that has had stuff before, and I've also been somebody that has not had stuff before. And I have noticed a difference in how I get treated when I have earthly possessions versus when I lack earthly possessions. And when you come across these bad trees, now I'm only talking about bad trees. No, I'm gonna talk about the good trees too. When you come across somebody when you lack earthly riches, you'll see what the contents of what their heart really is, because it's something about a person that can't benefit you. When it comes to these bad trees, it's something about a person when they can't benefit you, that people ignore you, they treat you like trash. But if you had money and you had cars and you had a reputation that made you have this status that could benefit the person, a lot of times they'll do the same thing like they do with the pretty person. They will eat up everything that you say and do as though it were sent from above, simply because you can benefit them, because they want some of your money, they want some of your status. So they're going to listen to everything. They're going to hang on everything. That's the reason why we have these gurus out here. They're going to listen and hang on every word that you say, because they're trying to get some of what you got. But when you ain't got nothing, that's when you see the true nature of folks come out. Now you have folks that when you ain't got nothing, they'll still treat you with honor, love, and respect. That lets you know that's a good tree. But when you don't got nothing, that's when they start treating you like a piece of trash. Again, Yahusha is the example of that. The Son of Man, foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. There's a reason why he came the way he came. it showed the true hearts of the people that he came to. You know what I'm saying? I love Yahuah. Anyway, so yeah, if you got all this stuff going on, I mean, first of all, stop arguing with folks about what they got on their vessel, because you don't know what they got on the inside unless you are observing righteously what they got on the inside. Because what they got on the outside of their vessel don't mean nothing. It's what's on the inside, right? But work out your fear. I mean, work out your salvation with fear and trembling unto Yahuah. Don't stop being out here. Listen, Yahushua told us to observe the fruit. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do, because if the fruit is good, the tree is good. Stop looking on the outside and saying, you know, this person is righteous, that person, that's not righteous judgment. So these tassels, again, the tassels back in the day represented the Ruach HaKodesh, and how everybody would have the Ruach HaKodesh after Yahusha's sacrifice. The garments that the Ruach HaKodesh were on were Yahusha, the new man. We cannot be reconciled unto Yahuah except through Yahusha, right? All right, I'm gonna stop right there. I love you guys. Thank you for sticking with me if you're still here. And for those that left, may Yahuah give them this word some other way, in a way that is not as long-winded, and maybe that they'll receive it better. But I love you all. Much ahab and shalom.